Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Hey, fellows. It's the first night of another season.
Nerds roll.
Oh, my glasses are broken.
And this will begin season 2 of Nerd Skool.
Welcome back to season 2, Nerd High. Glad to have you.
It's gonna be crazy stunts. We're gonna there's gonna be stunts.
Joe's gonna
fireworks.
bring more penis jokes.
There's a lot of penis stuff.
I am a super nerd.
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
Starring Andy,
Star Spangled Band with a plan.
Maybe I'll try to do a cartwheel.
TBJ.
Welcome. Congratulations. You did dirt. Ta-da. I ain't got no shame. All my exes can tune in. We can have an episode where I compare them to all the Marvel villains. We can do that.
Art Star.
I don't love Wiener.
I'm just trying to make money.
Lord Artemis Prime rises.
Yeah, my real name is Joe.
Did I ever tell you about the time I hung out with DMC at Mertz?
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
All right. So, what's your guys' deal?
Is
Is that how we open episodes now?
Yeah.
How long has it been? It's been a while since we recorded anything.
It has.
Yeah, because there were so many of the last one was so long.
And it's still so. I mean, it's also. I don't want to say it's pretty late because I'm a vampire anyway. But This is a late recording.
Yeah,
it's 9 o'clock as a
a
recording, you guys, just in case.
Yeah, and this might. Yeah,
Just in case you're listening at us at 6 in the morning, it's 9 for us.
Yeah, it's either gonna go really late or
maybe it'll be a real short one because Antman is very small.
Bum, bum, bum.
yes. Antman.
No one followed that up. I was like, "Hey, Andy just made a really bad pun."
Yeah,
and I did, and people like silence.
No, it was brilliant, but I muted myself because in case we go along today, because I always end because I'm starving, I am eating while we record.
Yeah, what are you? This can be an ASMR, so we can listen to you eat. Or it could be a mukbang podcast. You tell us what you're eating.
We're not going to do that.
All right.
Quietly, while we dive into
Can you just crinkle some paper really slow and delicately?
No.
What does ASMR stand for?
Audio stimulation.
Reaction.
Fucker.
Hold on, I'm looking at Andy.
I suppose I could have just done that part.
Autonomous sensory meridian response.
That's
So
what
it's
I
basically a transformer.
It's a tingling sensation that usually begins in the scalp and moves back to the neck and upper spine. That's the feeling people get with ASMR.
And it's usually just people talking like this, or it's
It's
like
they do this.
it's them talking and all the noises that go with it. So like if I talk and then you hear my lips pop,
Or just slowly tapping your nose on the table.
Eating potato chips.
Mm-hmm.
just occasionally sitting around scratching yourself and belching.
There's a girl on YouTube who
interesting
just
genre.
she rubs like brushes on the microphone, and all the comments are like, "Take your shirt off," and sexually harassing.
But here's the thing, right? Like
Of
when I
course,
first seen
of course
this,
people would do that.
Yeah.
when I first seen the whole ASMR type thing, I automatically assumed, because I'm assuming, to this day I'm still assuming that it's highly sexually in nature to some extent, right?
Yeah, to some people.
It's stimulating your brain, and it's also just like usually, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but usually when if you go on YouTube and you look for these videos, what do you? It's like now there's like this new breed of Twitch gamers where it's like me saying it is definitely kind of sort of problematic, but it's like there's like the whole hot tub kind of thing or whatever. But you're watching this female play a video game, but she's because Twitch streamers can make a lot of money, right?
Yeah,
and a lot of times it's usually it's usually mostly men who may be watching some of these streams.
Well, men are so disgusting.
Like these women, they'll turn
everything into a sexual. Everything.
Yeah, but in the same token, you have women who who buy into that. Like, so they're
I
sitting
don't know
there,
if they buy into it or it is.
when I say buy into it, when I say buy into it, I mean, here's this woman, you know, she knows that men are sluts. Men are like dogs, like, ooh, a bone.
Yeah.
Right? So, but she comes out and she's playing Stardew Valley, which is a life sim, which basically is all about tediously doing mundane tasks. But she has on a halter top and she's spilling out. And men are sitting there spending $20 here,
that's
$30
smart.
here.
It sounds smart to me.
Chat. Right. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because you're going to sexualize her regardless. Like if she came on and played that game and just happened to be in a regular t-shirt, not baggy, someone in the comments are going to sexualize her anyway.
But see, the thing is,
she's like, you know what?
Because it's your stream, though, because it's your stream, you can regulate that. You have mods.
Yeah, but if she can also get paid.
And he sit there and say, take off your top, ban him. Boom. Problem solved.
But she knows that money's coming.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying.
I think just
when
the fact
it's going to come off problematically, I'm saying she's buying into it. It's not necessarily her sitting there saying, I'm straight buying into it. She's using that. She's using
it to her advantage. She's playing the game.
Yeah, more power
to her.
I say.
Well,
yeah.
But it's the concept. There's a large number of strippers who take advantage of money who don't even like dudes, who are lesbian AF.
Yeah.
They have the body and they're about to take it down to the club. About to throw dollars at all of them. And when they go home, they think about you, but they got that money. So I don't know if it's buying into it or it's going, fuck it. If you're going to sexualize me anyway, not that it's right to sexualize women, because check yourself, dudes.
No, that's the problem.
There are some women who are just going to go, you know what? Can't escape it. Let's.
I'm convinced there's somebody is sexualizing everything, anything, like Martha Stewart or like, Nancy Pelosi.
Somebody is definitely getting off Martha Stewart and loving it.
C. Everett Koop. Like people are like, oh yeah, C. Everett Koop. Yeah.
Former Surgeon General.
Surgeon General. Janet Reno. Oh yeah.
Pee Wee Herman. Cherry.
It is no matter what. Anything. It could be it could be a picture of a stapler on the screen with a woman talking and somebody's getting a boner. Oh my God, staplers, do it for me. Because men are weird.
Yes, that's an understatement. That is a hell of an understatement.
Speaking of weirdos,
humans are weirdos.
2015's Antman starred a silly weirdo, Paul Rudd.
An unaging silly weirdo.
Yeah, unlikely.
Who's a few times have been voted, one of the hottest men in the world.
Yes, sexiest man in the world, but he's an unlikely hero, I would say. Right? He's more of a comedy guy, or
he was also unlikely as the sudden romantic lead in Clueless, because I remember watching Clueless.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, she had this big revelation that she was in love with her brother. Yeah. And it was like the weirdest thing. And
I love my brother.
And I forgot someone said, "Oh wait, it's her stepbrother, so it's allowed." Something like that.
And they didn't really see each other very often. There's a lot of step relative in the porn world, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Videos. I only know from my project that I take porn videos and I cut out all the sex.
I saw a thing on the internet once that was like porn made safe for work, and it was just like people doing like taking a porn scene, like putting MS Paint all over it and making it all look like it's like somebody's playing the accordion or something instead of...
I didn't think about that. I was just gonna do all the parts like the dumb dialogue when they ding dong, hey, somebody order a pizza.
It's so weird that someone thought I need to make porn safe for work. Here's a novel concept. Don't watch porn at work.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, kids.
Yeah, it was like a joke video it was like 20 seconds of just.
But someone's like, hell yeah.
Speaking of watching porn at work, Antman would not.
Is Antman porn?
Watch porn at work because he can't get a job because he's got a record, and even the Baskin Robbins always finds out and gets rid of him.
Yeah, he can't really watch porn at Baskin Robbins.
Directed by Peyton Reed. Which I don't know anything about Peyton Reed.
Well, he was a step in. This movie was in development way before even Iron Man came out.
Really?
Like Howard Stern tried to buy the rights in 2000 to make an Ant-Man movie, I guess. But this started
in a very different Ant-Man.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It started development in 2006 before Iron Man, and then it was Edgar Wright, the director of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Oh yeah,
and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is a movie we should watch and talk about at some point.
Definitely
comic based nerd.
Is that
stuff.
nerdy? It's comic based.
Yeah,
it was a great video game too.
If it's anything like those other, like Shaun of the Dead, I'm up for that.
Yeah.
You never watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
No.
I consider doing that when we took our Marvel break. I was thinking about recommending that
into this summer's rotation. One of you.
I mean, we are approaching the end of a phase.
That's right.
This is the end of a phase.
This movie is the end of phase 2 of the Marvel MCU.
Okay.
Yes, but so Edgar Wright was gonna write and develop this, and he was working on various versions of this until 2014, when they kind of realized that the movie, like he described it as, I wanted to make a Marvel movie, but I don't think they really wanted to make an Edgar Wright movie. So he was working on this, and they used a lot. He wrote a lot of this film, and they used a lot of his script. I think for this. But I think there's probably some conflict between the creative, what he wanted to do with it, and what Marvel needed him to do with it to fit in with the rest of the MCU.
Okay. It says writers on IMDb, it says Edgar Wright. He's got the top billed writer, Joe Cornish and Adam McKay.
Yeah. They worked on this for a long time and various permutations of it.
That's interesting. So it's safe to say this was going to be done before they even had the MCU idea?
Well, I mean, if Howard Stern had bought the rights in 2000, I think it would be a whole different vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they were, I think this was before, maybe even before Marvel Studios itself was really a thing. Like they just went in and were trying to get the rights. Like Ant-Man was one of the things they had the rights to after Marvel had sold off the rights to so many of their characters to try to stay afloat, because they almost went bankrupt in the 90s.
Yeah.
And
so they shelved this movie, then did Iron Man and the other stuff.
Well, it was in development.
Different people did
I don't know if it ever got shelved, but it was like on the back burner, and it wasn't like the priority to make sure we lead with Ant-Man.
Well, and so maybe once they did the other ones, then they were like, oh, hey, we were going to do this one.
Yeah.
This might fit perfectly. And Ant-Man is an Avenger?
Ant-Man, Hank Pym, the Michael Douglas character, is actually one of the founding Avengers. And Hank Pym has one of the weirdest Marvel character histories, because he's gone through several different identities as like costumed names and stuff. Like here, I made a quick list of this.
Okay.
Like he first appeared as just a random doctor experimenting with shrinky shit in Tales to Astonish number 27 in 1962. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created him. Then in issue 35 of that series, Tales to Astonish, which is a line in this movie. Darren Cross says it at one point, talking about
yes.
Tales to Astonish.
Tales to Astonish. That was a clever thing. Yeah,
that's a nod. And then in 1963, he was one of the founding Avengers. He was Ant-Man. And then he became Giant Man in Tales to Astonish number 49 with like, well, if I can shrink, I can grow. So I'm also Giant Man. And then he changed his name to Goliath in Avengers number 28, 3 years later. And then 2 years after that, he became Yellow Jacket in Avengers number 59. And then in the 80s, he kind of had some troubles. We'll go into the history of Hank Pym and the troubled history of Hank Pym. But he's like sort of retired from being a costume guy, but he was just, I'm Dr. Pym. I'm going to wear like this red jumpsuit. I'm going to do science stuff. I'm going to join the West Coast Avengers in 1987. And then he actually...
So did they have the East Coast and West Coast Avengers? Like the East Coast, West Coast All-Stars?
Kind of. The main Avengers were always based in New York. The Avengers Mansion was in New York. Avengers Tower is in New York. but they decided
And Lil
they spun
Kim.
off-
That's Lil Kim's in that one, or is Lil Kim in the West Coast? I can't remember.
I think she's East Coast. She's with Biggie, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Lil Kim is East Coast.
Lil
Yeah,
Kim.
all day.
But Little Wasp was there as well. But it's then in the 80s they said, well, let's do a different Avengers. We have so many different people who have been in the Avengers. Let's make a new team, put it on the West Coast, and have different Avengers there, so we can have 2 Avengers teams going.
Okay.
So they did that, and then in 2009, the Wasp had died, so he sort of became the Wasp in honor of her. And then in the last decade, he kind of went crazy and became Ultron somehow.
Oh, Hank Pym did. Okay.
Hank Pym is the original creator of Ultron, which was we talked about in Age of Ultron, that they kind of changed it from being Hank Pym to Tony Stark, and thus Ultron the character kind of changed with that.
Oh, I must have been in the bathroom when he said that.
Yeah, you probably did. Well, I mean, this is where we get to talk about who Hank Pym is. Before I just said you probably didn't know, who's Hank Pym? I don't know, whatever.
Hey, I don't sound like that.
Yeah, you sound like
I sound more
sound
like this. Hey, who's Hank Pym?
Yeah,
who's
that's
that
not
guy?
that's not how you sound. So I had to break it
Who's
to
that guy? That guy so cool.
Hey, I don't sound like that.
Hey guys, Hank Pym's so
That's Cartman.
Yeah.
He might not be far off, Joe.
Okay.
So
Starring
anyway,
Paul Rudd,
yeah.
Michael Douglas, and Corey Stoll. Okay, you're still talking about Hank Pym.
Yeah, a little
What more
bit.
you want to say about him?
I
mean, we'll talk about him quite a bit, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So we can jump in. Michael Douglas plays him.
Mhm.
And are people happy with this casting generally when it started? Like, does everybody hate Corey Stoll or?
I mean,
Corey
Michael
Stoll is a
Douglas?
great actor. He was awesome in House of Cards.
I never
maybe
saw House of
that's
Cards.
what I know him
Never
from.
seen
I
House
know
of
from
Cards?
something.
Wait, is that the Kevin
I
Spacey
haven't
thing?
watched House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I think
don't-
that's what I
don't
know
watch
him
Kevin
from.
Spacey
I
anymore.
watched the
Well,
first.
Kevin Spacey got kicked off of it, so he was,
Yeah.
they booted him.
Well,
Yeah,
they should.
he was problematic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like Hank Pym's been through a lot of stuff. As far as I know, his casting, I think it was fine. I think some nerds were probably like a little sad that Hank Pym and the Antman and the Wasp are founding members of the Avengers originally.
Right.
So it's a little.
But they weren't originally father-daughter, right? It wasn't Hope. It was
right.
his
We'll
wife,
learn more
who's the
in
one
this-
who's in space. Or
Yeah, the one who shrank into
Quantum.
oblivion. That's the Wasp. That's Janet Van Dyne.
That's
That's
the
her
original.
mama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the mom. Okay.
And we'll learn more about her in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the sequel to this.
Okay.
But those two are founding members of the original lineup of the Avengers. It was Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Ant-Man, Wasp. Captain America wasn't even on there. And so it's like a little sad for some nerds to go, oh well, it took 2 Avengers movies before we get these guys in the thing, but at least they're there.
Yeah.
They are there.
They're there now.
But it's very clear they're not Avengers. And kind of when Paul Rudd's like, "Hey, you should call the Avengers," and he's like, anything I can do to keep my formula away from Tony Stark."
He was an
From a start.
anti-Avengers. He was anti-Stark.
Yeah.
Stark. Yeah.
Which is like the first scene is the flashback to the 80s where we see some Peggy Carter.
And Howard Stark. Yeah. Peggy Carter. Yeah.
Also, can I say this real quick?
Yeah. You can say whatever you want.
Again, I don't even know why I'm saying this. But
I love you too, Art. I know what you're gonna say. I also love you.
the whole thing with him and Stark, like it kind of comes up a little bit again in the next movie, but again I don't know why I stopped this to tell you, Joe. It's just gonna go over your head.
Yeah, we'll find it there. But there is a bit of a history of a rivalry between Hank Pym and Tony Stark in the comics as well. There's Hank and Janet had some marital issues, which we can go into later. But there was a time where like Hank Pym was like in prison. He was having like a mental breakdown and he was in jail for doing some shit. Like when he was Yellow Jacket, he kind of went off the rails.
Yeah.
And I think he was framed or something, but they had split up for a while and Tony Stark kind of dated her for a little while, and that kind of you don't
Don't date the man's wife.
Yeah.
Tony Stark did, not Howard Stark.
Yeah, Tony Stark. Yeah.
Okay. So in this iteration, it seems like Hank is a little more towards the age of Howard, a little bit older.
Yeah.
It opens with Hank mad at Howard in 1989, and isn't. I was trying to do the math. I was like, isn't Agent Carter a little too young? Like, shouldn't she be a lot older than they make her? Like or maybe she's just pretty.
She was young in 1945. So, and this is what? Like
89
4 years later.
4 years.
So
40 years later, she should be 80 something.
No, she
could be like look at Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren is old, but she doesn't look as old as she
fine.
is.
Yeah, she looks 60-ish, maybe. Yeah, I mean, she's
Helen,
young.
Art Star has a crush on Helen Mirren.
Who doesn't?
I ain't gonna lie.
Who doesn't?
I mean, listen, she can get it.
I think I'm thinking of somebody else.
Are you thinking of Helen Hunt?
Oh no, I think I'm thinking of Helen Mirren. She's an older gal.
Maybe she just doesn't do it for you.
Doesn't do it for me.
It's okay.
I thought you were talking about Helen from the Ropers.
Not Helen Roper.
Helen Roper.
No, Joe has like a lot of B. Arthur love.
I do love the Golden Girls. I love those ladies. Well, Hank is mad that they're stealing his formula. And Michael Douglas, I felt like Michael Douglas looks great. Like they really did a good job making him look young without it looking like makeup or something. I don't know how, like CGI or something.
It was CGI, but then they also used like images from earlier movies for him.
That's what I figured.
What's his name? I forgot the fucker's name. The guy who was Shield Hydra.
Yeah.
Mitchell Carson.
Yeah, Mitchell Carson. Yeah. So they used older films and little de-aging and all this other bullshit.
Yeah, it was really well done. I thought.
CGI.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I thought they did a good job with that.
I mean, from what I read, they basically did the same shit that they did. Use the same technology that they used with Cat when they made dude look buff like a little kid, and then all of a sudden he's normal self.
I thought they just CGI'd his head onto some little guy's body.
Yeah, I thought they did too. And then and then it cuts to Scott in his prison fight because he kind of says we need I can't remember what the segue was, but we need a loser. And then it's like, or what kind of idiot they're gonna do, whatever. Shows him with Peachy trading blows with Peachy.
You have to fight to get out. Okay?
Yeah. Who did that, Peachy? Remember Peachy, yeah. I'm going to miss you, Peachy. That was pretty fun.
I tell all my close friends, that's the only way we can stop being friends is if we fight. So it's how I operate my friendships. You have to fight to get out.
You got to fight to get out of it.
I see.
And I'm the evil.
You got to trade punches.
As long as people know the terms, I'm not sneaking up on anyone. I'm not tricking anyone. I never said you have to be sugary sweet to be nice. I just lean towards the light and not.
Do you? That's there are a lot of dark Jedi who aren't Sith. Just so you know.
I'm not dark. I'm a wonderful disposition of sunshine. You just, if I dare decide you are my friend, you don't get to just walk away. It doesn't.
You guys, she says this, but TBJ has this look that she gives you, and it's almost like a death stare.
That's
it's
the
like
Force.
Yeah,
that's the Force.
It's the sunshine coming out of my eyes.
That's the Care Bear stare right there.
Yes, Care Bear stare. Also, you should ask yourself, what am I doing to get said look from TBJ? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta look within yourself, Art.
Yep.
I know where I sit. I don't sit on the throne of lies. I know where I sit.
I sit on the throne of truth. Okay. Not too peachy in the fight.
Hey, this is not about light and dark. This is not about the Force and the Sith. This is about Antman. We're here for Antman, guys.
And it's about Luis. And Luis comes and picks him up with his van.
Michael
I love his character.
Yeah,
he's trying to remember his name last time, Joe. But
yeah, what's his name?
Maybe it was on Polo.
Michael Pena.
Michael Pena. So I feel like, where do we know him from? Do you guys know offhand?
He's
Friday,
been
next Friday. Been a lot of stuff.
Okay.
But he definitely next Friday was Big Joker.
Yeah, and these guys,
American Hustle,
Luis and his crew.
You know him.
Yeah.
Luis and his crew are Edgar Wright characters.
Okay.
These guys aren't from the comics that I'm aware of, but they're just the dudes Edgar Wright would create around Ant-Man, and they're great. That's why they're fun and great. And
they are great
because Edgar Wright.
But I love that addition to here is your hero or anti-hero. Of course, he's around a fool or two, of course. And here they are. And they're lovable fools. So
the 3 wombats.
The wombats, yeah.
Those 3 wombats.
Not those 3 wombats. I love that. Yeah. And then what a great casting with these 3. T.I. Like, who would have thought T.I. would be
I just have
so
to
great?
Well, I've always thought T.I. was great and charismatic.
As a silly as this though, like
yeah, he has a goofy side. And that's what I used to love about Clifford Harris. Now, I will note he is currently problematic and there are lots of sexual assault allegations against him. So
he just did something with a comedian too.
He's been testing stand-up. He's been to like 2 at this point. He's been testing stand-up and going to lots of stand-up. So 2 incidents happened. He was at a stand-up and she alluded to some charges.
Yeah.
And he got very angry and vocal in the audience. And then he
Nope. Did we all lose TBJ?
Yep. Froze up.
They are both facing charges of.
Oh, hold on, TBJ. We lost you.
Lost you at number 2.
Yeah.
What was the second part?
We lost you at number 2.
Did I freeze? What did you say?
Yeah, we lost you.
We lost you at number 2.
You said number 2 after that.
For number 1.
Number 1,
that he got vocal in the audience.
Oh, dang. I had a whole speech other than number 2. He was recently at a show on stage where he got booed and had a big thing. So he's been making his rounds. But him and his wife, I was noting, are both accused of sexual misconduct. So it's not just him. It's both of them.
Like both of them together or both of them separately?
Together. But it hurts my heart because I love him and I love when he gets a chance to act because he does have that goofy side. And it makes me so happy. But of course, when this came out, he wasn't as problematic. But now.
Which is why we won't see him again.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably
I decide I have my joy for this.
But again, trying to separate the artist from the person here. We enjoyed his work in this. Shushing each other in the van was one of my favorite things. And Dave. I'm Dave. Who are you? I'm Dave. Oh, okay. You're Dave. I don't know. He was great. But so Luis picks him up, tries to get him back into the life. Scott right away says, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to see my daughter.
And this fits in with Scott Lang. His first appearance was 1979.
Okay.
Created by David Michelin and John Byrne and Bob Layton. And was his original character arc was he was a reformed criminal who was working for Stark actually as an electrical engineer.
Oh.
And his daughter got sick. So he stole Hank Pym's Ant-Man suit, which he was not using because he had become Yellow Jacket at the time.
Okay.
And had to go rescue the only doctor that could help her. Well, I think it was like a heart transplant or something. And the doctor was being held prisoner by Darren Cross, who also premiered in the first Ant-Man arc in 1979.
In the 79. So these two both came in together, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, I know we've talked about this quite a bit with all these movies, but I love how they weave in these different sections. Storylines, but put them together to seem like
it's also paying. It's one of those things where like you're introducing newer fans, but then you're also giving, I don't want to say lip service, but you're giving something for the people who know the character. You're giving them little Easter eggs, little Easter chicken, so they can, kind of relate. I mean, sure, you have that nerd or that person who I don't like how they changed this so much from what actually happened in the comics. This is not a comic book movie. This is something else totally different. Fuck that guy for fucking with my superhero.
But they had room in this because Darren Cross, like I think, died at the end of this arc in 1979 and like was dead until this movie came out, and they just thought, oh, he's in the movie, we better revive him and do something with him.
Mm-hmm.
But
so they revived him in the comics when this movie.
And see,
was
again, that's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's mostly for the comic nerd or the comic person who's in the comics. But like, you know, like these movies and these shows, when they a lot of times when they sometimes they end up introducing new characters, which then they also pull into the comic book because now you're trying to connect the comic nerd back into back with the movie and TV nerd, so you can like appease everyone. But it's just, to me, it's one of those things that always happen. Either someone, it's like, Joe, you love wrestling. It's like how sometimes, like when there's a movie coming out with a wrestler in it, what does the promotion do? Oh, let's put this person back on television.
Yeah.
He's out here promoting his movie. He's in some bullshit match just so you can see his face. And like now, all of his wrestling fans are gonna be like, "Oh, cool, let's go see this bullshit ass movie."
Yeah,
and let's make us some money.
That is a soundbite that needs.
Let's go see this bullshit
Can I
ass
say
movie.
this? Listen. How many of y'all have seen any of them fucking John Cena, the Marine? I think they did one with like the Miz. They did like what's that one that Jean-Claude Van Damme did? Universal Soldier. They did like Universal Soldier with like, I don't know if it was like the Miz or Randy Orton or some shit. Bullshit ass movies.
Was like Triple H in that one or something?
Well, Triple H, ironically enough, was in Blade 3.
Yeah, Blade Trinity.
He was?
Yeah.
Yep.
The only thing I ever saw John Cena in was that Amy Schumer movie.
Trainwreck.
Yeah, where you see his butt and his balls. I don't know. I don't know if you see his balls. Butt and balls go so well together.
This is an odd time to come back in.
Yeah, TBJ dropped for a minute, and now he gets to hear about John Cena's butt and balls.
Can I make one serious point though? Because
does it have to do with balls?
No, not about the balls.
Okay.
I was arguing with you when I cut off about separating the artist from the art, and I was making a comment that it is okay to separate them if it does go against your moral compass.
It is, or it's not.
It is.
It is okay to separate them. So that, because that's the whole thing, the whole conundrum I have is like,
it is okay to not separate them.
Oh, to not separate them.
Oh, to not.
To write someone off.
Yeah.
If they, because that's how we've gotten away with a lot of things in Hollywood over the years.
Yeah.
We've dismissed bad behavior for art.
What about, is there like a statute of limitations after somebody's dead? Like, can you be like, oh, they're dead now. Now I can like Michael Jackson's music.
I'm still probably not going to go watch the Michael Jackson musical. Yeah. For me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go run out and go see Fatty Arbuckle movies.
Once I put you in the trash human category.
So Beethoven's out.
You know, he was never my dude in the first place.
I think he did some bad things. Well, I'm just thinking about, all I want is Man in the Mirror. Can I listen to Man in the Mirror alone in my Prius?
You get to decide what works for you. If you might decide, listen, Michael Jackson's my dog forever, no matter what. My dad.
No, he's not. I don't like what he maybe has done, but maybe he didn't though. Like, I don't know.
That's why it's personal choices to decide.
And Man in the Mirror is about a guy looking in the mirror and trying to make himself better.
And it says Shamone.
Is that the only reason you like the dance?
And what about Prince? My name is Prince, motherfucker. He didn't do anything bad, right?
You want to read all of his ex-wives' books and how he treated them?
Oh, I didn't know Prince was problematic at all.
He was not publicly problematic. He was.
But
very
you read their
private,
books.
So is he post-problematic?
I mean, for me, I don't like any mistreatment of women. So for me,
you don't listen to Prince at all?
No.
Wow.
We're getting sidetracked, but can I say?
Yeah, we are.
I just want to say that because I dropped off. You guys can go back and talk about balls.
I just want to
make it clear.
We
what
go
I
back
don't want
to
to
talk
happen is anyone who is like, I was listening to this episode and Tiffany was not about it, and I'm about my shit against women and Black people. So I don't want anyone to ever listen to this podcast and mistake anything I say
and be like, "Oh, she was okay with it."
For trash humans.
I want to spend like 2 minutes on this real quick. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay, 2 minutes and go.
It's not going to be 2 minutes.
It's gonna try. I'm gonna try.
But is this wait, Art? Is this on the topic of John Cena's balls or the separating art from humans?
This is on the topic of wrestling.
Oh,
so me and the guys, we partake of something that you don't partake of. Anyway, and in this on this medium, we were discussing. We had this one discussion recently about wrestling, and like wrestling is a sports entertainment field. But there was this one wrestler recently who fought this lady. Like, like they had gotten away from doing. It was like a mixed gender match. So here was this man, and they were probably, he probably had maybe 50 pounds on her. But they were, and again, sports entertainment is basically scripted ballroom dancing. But there's parts where, like, he was body slamming her. He put his cup in her crotch. They was going at it. This is like man and a woman fighting each other, right?
In the day. Who's putting a cup in somebody's crotch? What are we talking about? You mean like grabbing his nuts or something?
No, what? No, I say put his cup in her face.
Oh, okay.
So he took she tried to hit him in the crotch.
Oh, his cup in his crotch.
Yeah, he produces
where are we going with this? Because we're on the edge. What I'm just trying to say. Here's the thing. My thing is, do you, as a woman, find anything wrong with a male wrestler having a match with a female wrestler where they have to get physical with each other? And it's been like back in the day, probably did it, but now in this day and age. Do you think it's okay for a male and female wrestler to have a match together? One, I don't think things are black and white. Two, they're both entertainers and they've signed a contract and agreed on this match. That's okay. My problem is how we depict the female in this match because we know it is scripted. And what misogyny are we holding up in this fight and how we script the match?
Well, what happens
with a male and a woman in a match? I got no problem with the man. Listen, if she throw a punch and you throw a punch, that's both of y'all. Both of y'all are trash. I'm not me being pro woman and pro feminism doesn't mean that I'm like, no, it's a right of a woman to decide. So if I'm a woman wrestler and I decide to take on this contract where Joe and I got to fight, I made that choice. Now, as a woman about my business, I am going to ask you about the depiction of me in this battle. So we're not leaning on a little bit of like beat woman porn, right? With how we're handling this match. But I wouldn't disagree if she chose to, as a performer, go into the ring with someone. That shit's choreographed all day. Right. Are there real injuries? Yes, we know that. I don't watch the dang on documentary on at least two of these damn wrestlers. They do get real injuries, but that's a choice as a performer. If we're not performing, then I have a lot of problems.
Okay.
And it's not a boxing match.
And this goes, surprisingly, this discussion really fits in with Antman because of Hank Pym's history in the comics. I think I talked about this before, but there's I should have looked up the issue. But like I said, like when he became Yellow Jacket, he sort of started manifesting like some psychological issues where like he was having like mental breakdowns, he was overstressed, and he was and later this was sort of played up as guilt about Ultron that was seeping into his head because he'd created Ultron and Ultron went crazy murderbot. And it was based on his own brain pattern. So he thinks Ultron is a reflection of his own brain. Anyway, but there was a period of time where Hank Pym was kind of going off the rails, and the Wasp, Janet, was trying to figure out what was wrong with him. And like he was just like pushing her away a lot. And as I understand the story, the intention of the writer was to have like this sequence where Hank Pym just kind of shoves her away and like he goes off to do his own thing. But in translation to the artist, who I don't think English was his first language, I wish I would have looked this up. The way it was drawn was he just hauls off and backhands her and knocks her onto the floor. And it's like, it becomes a spouse, like, and
he becomes a villain, right? At that point. And then he's a villain now. And
pretty much. Or like, he's like like he's, I think that's what put him in jail for a while. But I mean, this is back in, I think, the late 70s, 80s. So it's not that clear cut, I guess.
I was going to say, doesn't that make the reader feel some type of way about him right then and there? Like
yeah,
there,
that became the defining character. Like for the longest time, Tony Stark had an alcoholic story. The defining characteristic. No, Tony Stark, he's a drunk. And until the Robert Downey Jr. sort of changed everybody's view of him. In this, like Hank Pym, he beats his wife. That became the thing that everyone associates with him. And for the longest time, he was kind of like all you could do with him is have him be kind of in the background. And
I was gonna say, I would think that would be hard for you to sell readers on him, and like you're not gonna want to read about this guy now because he's that kind of person, you know.
I mean, I think he spent like years being like contrite and apologetic, and like that wasn't me. I was having a breakdown and blah blah blah, and so like they found ways to try to rehabilitate his
and I feel like they have a good way to say it, like they did in this movie. Is he kind of says about the helmet is important because without it, messing with your atoms and things changes your brain structure, and they really played that up with Darren Cross and showed him as like I like that moment towards the end where they kind of showed him like have that. It seemed like he had that second of remorse, like this isn't you, Darren. It's messed with you. This quantum changing has messed with your brain. You're not like this, you know, kind of thing.
And what I just noticed this watch through is that little exchange when like he suddenly shows up in his house and he like, oh shit, how much does he know? He's like, what did you see in me? And he's like, I saw myself.
Too much of
my. That's like,
that he was like this too.
Yeah,
he's had all.
That line. Listen,
and that's I think a reference to the fact that Hank Pym was Yellow Jacket,
and we lost
in the comics.
And we lost TBJ.
No,
I'm right here.
I think we lost you, Art.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah,
I think it's you.
It's you. We're all fine.
I was gonna say I didn't go nowhere. I'm not even on my internet now. I was just on my phone.
Yeah, but yeah, it was like Hank Pym was Yellow Jacket, and Hank Pym was. So this is like like Darren Cross is almost a reflection of the Yellow Jacket that he was in the comics.
Well, I feel like they did a good job of depicting Hank Pym in this. You could tell he's been through some shit. Like he's kind of frazzled. Like I don't know if it's just Michael Douglas is an old man now, but you know, like they did a good job of him being like an old man that's been through. You tell there was some tension between Hope and him and Darren.
Like he's done some wrong things. He's guilty, but he thinks he's trying to do the right thing, but he knows he's fucked up and he can't quite deal with it. And he's dealing with it by becoming obsessive about trying to get his wife back, which has resulted in him neglecting his daughter.
Yeah.
Who actually that character, Hope Van Dyne, or Hope Pym, I guess. She probably goes by Van Dyne in this because that's her mother's maiden name.
Yeah, so that's what I kind of wanted to ask you about. Is that so? Now I kind of understand Scott in the comics, but is Hope? Does this happen in the comics where Janet has disappeared into a quantum realm and then Hope takes over, or does none of that?
Hope is not really. There's a Hope alternate reality daughter of Hank Pym and the Wasp named Hope in this. They had a run of comics for a while that they wound up calling MC2, which was supposed to be like, we're going to set a series of comics in the near future where all of our current heroes have grown up and are like Peter Parker is old and his daughter is Spider-Girl now. And then they had Hope Pym, who was he was one of twins that Hank Pym had with Wasp, and so in the future, that's when we have like Scott Lang's daughter Cassie became became I guess stature or something, and she took on the mantle, and Hope was kind of like a villain against Cassie.
Cassie becomes a Wasp?
No. Well, in this MC2, I don't know a lot about it. I didn't read a lot of this, but I read up about Hope Pym, who was in 1999, Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends. But this is called A Next, which was the next version of the Avengers, and she was kind of like a villain for a while because she was mad that she didn't get to take on the mantle that Cassie had taken on, because it was Pym's originally. It was a whole thing. But Hank does have a daughter named Nadia in the main comics, who became a Wasp herself. And, but it was a daughter with his first wife, who we never really saw. Like, we only seen in like flashbacks. Who he was like a widower before he married Janet Van Dyne, which is a whole other thing. So I don't know if they'll ever do that. But Hope, as a character, was kind of created for this movie as she is here. Like, how can we have a young Wasp and an old Hank Pym? I guess that was a solution. Let's kind of create a sort of new character based on, with some elements of what is in the comics, but it's generally a new thing.
Okay. Wow. Okay. My head is swimming now. Like, that's so much. Yeah. But that's when Art's back, we lost him for a second. But so all right. So Scott says no, he wants to stay out of the business. I love the little bit about my girlfriend left me, or whatever it is. Somebody died, my dad, or whatever it was. But I got the van, or somebody was deported. I can't remember what it was, but it was
like all 1,000 million bad things. And
that he said with a smile, because
Luis is so great in this. Everything he does is just great. It's fabulous. I love him.
And like that storytelling thing he does, where like it's all flashbacks and everyone's speaking his dialogue. That's great. And there was a meme going around for a while that everyone wanted to have the entire MCU recapped by Luis. Wanted to have him tell the whole story of Infinity War and Endgame.
I would be down for that. He still can do that. We still got time.
Yeah, I would love that. I love that. This time I actually watched that part in slow motion. Like, I kind of paused it and it was like, okay, what? I'm breaking this down because it's so fast. I'm like, okay, who is it? And I actually slowed that whole thing down as he's telling the story, because I'm like, is there some Easter eggs in here? Is there somebody in the background? I was totally expecting more than I actually got, but it was kind of funny. But anyway, we cut to Baskin Robbins because he says, no, I'm going to be clean. I'm going to get a job. And then he's at Baskin Robbins, and just seeing Paul Rudd working at Baskin Robbins in general is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And the guy's screwing with him, like trying to order hot food, and he's like, "Want a fruit berries freeze or whatever it is." And then, of course, Baskin Robbins always finds out that little Dale scene. And I watched the deleted scenes in this one, and that Dale guy is pretty funny. Like, there's some improvising they did, I guess, that didn't make it in. That is pretty funny stuff. He's like, he goes off on like, what does he say? Is there anything I can do to change your mind? He's like, no, not unless you buy all the Baskin Robbins and then decide you want to start hiring criminals and thugs and monsters. And then Paul Rudd says something like, yeah, I expect that type of shit from Cold Stone Creamery. And then they both kind of bust out laughing, and it's kind of funny. So, but that guy's funny. He offers a mango fruit blast on the way out. And then T.I. says, yeah, Baskin Robbins don't play when he goes home. Yeah, Baskin Robbins always finds out. It's like, yeah, Baskin Robbins don't play. That whole thing is hilarious. So we meet Kurt and Dave at this point, and they're all great, and the fun ensues. These guys are established. And then Dr. Pym returns to Pym headquarters, and they don't even recognize him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, can I see your ID? Don't you see that picture there? And then we hear about the particle that could change distance between atoms while increasing density and strength. That's the crux of how this thing works. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I fell down a rabbit hole Googling, like, okay, is this possible? Like, is technically, if you could do that, could you shrink somebody? And there's tons of Reddit pages about that, and basically, no. You can't. It's not real.
I remember there's some suggestion or something that there's an upper limit, like, say you could grow real big.
Yeah.
Which there'd be like a top limit that you could get before. I don't remember what the height was, but before you could no longer really move properly because everything is too big.
You wouldn't be able to control.
Like, your musculature wouldn't be enough, even if it grew, to move the size of your arms or something like that. but that was just a weird, vague memory I have that doesn't really matter.
Well, and Darren Cross shows old footage from Hank running around, and he does reference to Tales to Astonish at this point. And he plays the Yellow Jacket, propaganda video. And then Hope and Hank have a secret conversation to kind of show that they are in what the kids these days call cahoots.
Is that what the kids these days call it?
Is that
no cahoots?
That's a newfangled young
newfangled young bucks in there cahoots.
Zoomer term.
Yeah.
And then so they decided that what they have to do is to stop him. They have this plan. Hope wants to do it, but Hank says, "I found a guy. Don't worry, I got a guy that can do this." And it cuts to Scott at the party, at his daughter's party, and excuse me, where right away they're like, "You can't be here, you piece of shit. You haven't paid any child support and all that." And we establish that Scott has this motive. His whole life is around this little girl, which is pretty sweet, I guess. Give him something to.
Did you say I guess?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, it is. She's adorable. I mean, they did a good job casting her, I think, and they did a good job making that stepdad douchey, but not. You still like him, but he's not Scott. They did a good job casting that guy, I thought.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, Bobby Cannavale, I think is how you say it.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Yeah, he's generally a pretty good dude.
Yeah, it was good. And then we cut to the Frank bathroom scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's like, "Hey, Frank," and then he zaps Frank into this little waste of shit, and he wipes him up, and it's all streaky and gross.
Yeah, it reminded me of the
Hi,
RoboCop
Frank.
scene where Dick Jones confronts a guy who built RoboCop, Bob Morton, in the bathroom about it, and it's just the weirdest little scene where they make corporate threats and he brushes his hair, then grabs him by it. It's just the most awkward scene, but it's the same thing.
Becomes that lump of junk, and then Darren talks to Hope about how Hank is a bad role model.
It was Ganavi and jelly, maybe, right?
Yeah, maybe that was Ganavi and jelly. He turned him into Ganavi and jelly. That's it. Yes. Good callback there. Anyway, so Scott, he's what's his name? Darren's telling Hope, talks about how Hank's a bad role model and father, and some of that, kind of what you talked about. It's kind of what he's established in the comics. And then Scott realizes that he can't see Cassie until he has an apartment, and he can't get a job without an apartment and all this. And so he asks Luis about his tip, and he tells the wrong details. He's like, "Just tell me the important details." And he tells him all about the wine, the specifics of the wine, and how I don't like reds, but they had a rosé that's
My kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so great.
What tangents? Tangents are good for us. We like tangents.
We like tangents.
Us? Yeah.
Then, if you guys, speaking of tangents, does anybody remember in Luis's story, a little quiz here, the name of the softball team that they play on? His buddy plays on.
Is it the Gorillas?
Nope.
No, I don't know.
They're called the Third Strikers. That's on their shirts. It says the Third Strikers. So I actually Googled all over the internet because I thought somebody made a jersey you could buy. The softball team in Luis's story, and I didn't find them anywhere. But old man have safe gone for a week, and now we get a montage, and it's heist time. We get right into this heist, and that Loctite fingerprint trick was really cool. Where it's fingerprinted. We can't do that. Oh, we're screwed. I got a plan. And I actually looked on the internet, and they said that actually you can actually do that. That's actual.
Were you trying to figure out all the things you can do for future criminal activities there, Joe?
Maybe.
Joe does not have the grace to be a cat burglar
I
of
would
any
be.
sort. Imagine that guy trying to break into a place.
Hey, you're just picturing me drunk. I'm not always drunk.
Yeah, you are.
I don't have that much confidence in you cat burglaring sober either, John.
That's true. Hey, anybody here?
Yes.
He'd be checking out their toilet.
Hey, buddy, did you take a shit today? All right, so anyway, I was really impressed with that thing, and that establishes that Scott's really smart and he's a good criminal. And then the Carbondale Titanic iceberg thing. It's a Carbondale, the Titanic was made of that. That seems a little less plausible to me, but I didn't Google it. But
that's chemistry.
Ice expands, metal doesn't. And then we see that Hank is watching the entire thing with an insect camera.
Yep.
So that whole bit was good. I mean, I think that established Scott is super smart, great criminal. And then we get the Lamb trials with, Darren Cross trying to
being a creep,
shrink the lamb. Yeah.
And this kind of, Darren Cross's the first Antman story was, he was an older guy that needed heart transplants and he kidnapped the doctor that needed to save Cassie. To be the person to fix his hearts, and he was just like harvesting hearts from random poor people. So geez. He was pretty villainous.
Wow.
And he died at the end of that first story. So okay. But I wanted to mention this because I saw this at Wikipedia. Like he's the cousin of a different character named Crossfire, whose name is Cross. And he doesn't even have enough to have an entry in Wikipedia other than just saying he's the closest thing Hawkeye has to an arch enemy.
Yeah, because a guy who just shoots a bow and arrow doesn't need an enemy.
Joe, when we get finished, Joe, you should look up Robot Chicken Hawkeye.
Okay.
Because there's this whole skit on Robot Chicken with the Avengers, and I guess Natasha gets killed. But it was the only reason Natasha was there, and they sexualized her. And then she gets killed, and then Hawkeye does this whole thing oh yeah, I'm just a guy with a bow. I don't even know why you guys keep me around. He's crying against the tree, and as he's crying against the tree, all of a sudden they start sexualizing him, start looking at his ass and everything. But it's Robot Chicken Hawkeye. You should look that up on YouTube.
That's funny. My father-in-law loves Robot Chicken. I think that's so funny. He doesn't seem like a guy that would love Robot Chicken, but he does. He watches it all every morning. Yeah, so I think the way making this guy screw with lambs, like baby lambs, establishes us to hate him.
Sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, sacrificial.
He doesn't know the difference between lambs and mice.
Yeah, he's who cares? They're just animals.
I don't think he gives a damn.
No, these poor little babies.
And he already killed Frank, so he doesn't give a shit.
Poor Frank. Should we pour one out for Frank? Is Frank in the comics?
I don't think so.
You're telling me there's nobody named Frank in any comic books? That doesn't seem true.
Only Frank Castle, the Punisher.
He's the only Frank?
Probably more, but Frank Castle was one of them.
You don't think there's any of those fruit pie ads that's hey, Frank, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm sure there's Franks. And now I'm trying to think of another Frank that's not Frank Castle. I have to think about it.
So do we get a formal apology for you blankets stating
this particular Frank, the Frank that gets killed immediately in Antman? I don't think he's in the comics.
So are you apologizing to TBJ then?
Yes.
For misleading.
He did not offend me. Thank you for the apology.
Well, I'll apologize, and then you can just keep it in your pocket for the next time I go wrong.
There you go. Yeah, and we will all remind you that he apologized already for whatever it is.
Okay.
So he gets one freebie to, all right, Andy, say your horrible misogynistic thing that you're going to say to piss her off. We all know it's inevitable.
I think Andy's the least likely candidate in that boat to piss me off out of the three of you.
Oh, you don't think he's going to say?
Who's the most likely? Name drop, name drop.
Listen, you all know who you are. I think you know the order of my affection for each of you in my heart.
You don't.
Wow.
You don't think Andy's going to pull a Cam Newton?
I feel like
I hope not. I would be greatly disappointed.
The other day, I feel like we had a special moment. I gave TBJ a piece of candy.
Oh my gosh!
And I think I even said something "Don't ever say I'll never like you."
I love how that one thing you did is supposed to
Wipes
Make
out
up for everything.
Well, Andy gave you a preemptive apology, and Art gave you candy. So now
I was like, what I did, it was one. I didn't even think about it until after the fact. I was like, that whole day, it was like probably one of the calmest days, and it's probably because our friend was there. And when our friend is there, I try to we'll do some talking back and forth, but it breaks up the dichotomy between it breaks it up between us because now it's like we're working together, so it doesn't feel the same, right? So I was like, but I sat there like, after the fact, I was like, wow, I could use this just because I know it's not necessarily going to be funny, it's going to be corny, but then it leans into the silliness of our time.
Whoa, it looks like we've run out of time. Join us next time as we continue our discussion on Antman. Thank you for listening to the Nerd Skool Podcast.
They say I can't rap about the president no more, but evidently they don't see we in the streets still poor. Still more incarceration of my kinsmen by the prisons, and people thinking this election to end in racism. Proud over pessimism, glad to see Obama, but don't expect me not to speak out when I still see problems.
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.
Listen, people can make fun of me for my holiday movies all we want to, but I'm like, are you alive? Did I fuss at you today? Did I yell about anything? All right, then. You're welcome. You better thank Hallmark for keeping me safe.